I watch a lot of YouTube, usually a lot of dry content, but content which is important to me. It's something that's usually educational and it's something that actually interests me. So today, I've decided to react to someone else's content from around the world, which is directly related to finance, and I've decided to put my thoughts onto the big screen about the content that I regularly consume. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reece. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to a YouTuber called Lana, who is a financial/lifestyle YouTuber from Sweden. Don't know where she lives at the moment. That'd be kind of weird if I did, but I've recently come across her content. I really enjoy it. She has a relatively good message that she puts out there, and it's something that I wanted to react to show you that it's not just me preaching what I'm preaching. Lots of people preach it, and lots of people articulate it differently, and it's interesting. So here we go, let's jump into it.
I briefly mentioned in one of my videos that I've always been a good saver, and since then I've been getting a ton of requests to make a video about it. And since I bought my own apartment recently and posted about it on my Instagram, I've been getting even more requests. And I'm very passionate about this topic, so I was like, yes, I will gladly do that.
She sounds just like me, monotone and interpersonal finance, which just goes to show that I'm not the only monotone person talking about personal finance out there.
So a lot of people are really good with money and a lot of people really aren't. I developed healthy saving and spending habits early on in life. I started having financial goals before I even made my first coin, and I've always been dedicated to reaching those goals, and I'll be sharing some of those later on.
Okay, she really does sound like me. Personal finance and learning at a young age. I feel like there's a commonality here considering we're actually pretty much the same age. She's only a few months younger than I am. I'm 26 now, and it's really refreshing again to hear someone saying, from a young age, I started learning about personal finance, and the result of that has been, I would call it a level of success.
Money has simply always been really interesting to me, which is also why I went to uni for finance. I don't think money is something that we should be whispering about. I think it's important that we learn as much as we can about it so that we can make better choices for ourselves. Now, this is not going to be a video about stocks and investments. You can go watch Graham Stephan or Nate O'Brien for that. The focus of this video will simply be how you can free yourself from a mindset that is limiting you and therefore save more and spend less.
See, that's something that I really appreciate, is that she's not looking at teaching you tips and tricks, and she's not teaching you anything in particular. She's going to talk about a topic, discuss it, and the outcome of this is going to be something that I agree with, and it's finding a way to approach personal finance, or finding a way to approach the mindset you need to have in order to get your finances into check. This is exactly what I love to preach, and it's part of why I'm making videos right now, is because what she's saying from the first minute of watching this video is basically the type of stuff that people need to get into their heads to get an outcome of having a routine with their finances and feeling comfortable with their finances.
There's a lot of information to unpack, but I will make sure that it is easy to follow. So get comfortable, put your pet in your lap, grab a notebook or open up an Excel spreadsheet and log into your bank account.
Unfortunately, my house is a pet-free house, so no pets in my lap, but Excel spreadsheet, open it up. I wonder if from this video there will actually be things I can put into a spreadsheet. Let's keep going.
And now, quick disclaimer, I know that everyone's financial and life situation is very different, but I'll be talking from personal experience and what I believe to be generally good advice. And so right off the bat, the obvious way to increase your savings is to increase your income. But even so, a person could be making a lot of money and yet have no discipline when it comes to their personal finances.
I 100% agree with that statement. Not necessarily the one about increasing your income. Of course, I agree with that one, but that's a time-based thing that's reliant on you getting a university degree and moving up in the ranks at your job, or starting a business and really putting work and time and effort into it. That component, yes, over time. It's not something you can do immediately, but the concept here is some people do make quite a lot of money and still have terrible discipline, or they have lifestyle creep, which I'll make a video on in the future. But the point being that I completely agree that just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean you're necessarily good with your money. i.e., she's saying be conscious of it, and I totally agree with that.
So let's get into it. Let's start with the mindset, and you might not have seen this one coming, but changing the way that you view and feel about money is so important. You know, a lot of people see it as this unattainable thing that will never happen to them. Every video I've ever watched on how to save money, the comment section is always packed with people writing things like, can't relate, it'll never happen to me, I'll never make enough money to be able to save XYZ, I could never, yada yada.
I agree. Again, really good points. She's not giving you a specific piece of advice. It's generic advice, but the concept behind it is good. What she's saying is essentially to change your mindset. Great. What comes from this is discipline and building good habits, and then eventually feeling comfortable in the space of running your own personal finance. So far, so good.
Or the classic, they were probably born into a rich family, or I'm sure that they have rich parents. If you label yourself as someone who can't and won't, then that is exactly what you will be. If you believe that something is unattainable, then it'll be unattainable. So you need to take control of your narrative. Do you think that anyone who was ever successful with money told themselves daily that they couldn't? I have a hard time believing that, and I actually believe the very opposite of that to be true.
That's a great analogy to have, and you can apply that logic in almost any situation that you find yourself in.
Once you get yourself into the I am just as capable as anyone else mindset, which by the way isn't a one-time thing, it's something that you will need to keep reminding yourself of, you need to have an aim, something to encourage you and to keep you on track. So ask yourself questions like, what do you want to save for? What will you do with that money? How much do you need? Why is it important that you save this money? What can or will be the consequences if you don't? I know some people's aim is simply to see the numbers on their statement grow, which is fine. Personally, I need something more than that to keep me encouraged. So for instance,
So now jumping out of the mindset and habit building, we are talking about the call to action. So what do you actually want to gain from this, and how are you going to actually go about doing it? It's basically pre-planning. This is now putting together your plan on how you're going to attack and achieve this goal.
two of my biggest financial goals that I've had have been, one, to be able to move and study abroad, and two, to buy my own apartment, and now I have done both.
She's my age and she has relatively straightforward goals, being wanting to study and wanting to buy an apartment. Similarly, I don't know what the word is. Similarly, I personally wanted to buy a house, and in one of my videos, I've definitely made that clear that that was a goal that I wanted to achieve as early as possible. So I had the mindset. I then started working towards a goal and put a plan in place to achieve it. And by the ripe age of 24, I had achieved that. I now am moving on to my new goals because I've set new goals because I've achieved them. And what is going to come of them, we will see in the future. But the point again being that I am following this trend. I'm following this mindset. And she's not the first person to invent it, but she's someone who's applied it. And like she said, she wanted to travel and study abroad. And now she wanted to buy an apartment, which she has achieved because of following these fundamental rules.
One aim that I have now is that one day I want to own a farm where I can have lots of animals and where I can grow my own fruits and vegetables. And I also have this idea that I want the local elderly people to come over for breakfast and coffee in my garden, like once a week. It'll be like this party for local seniors where we will eat good food and play games and share stories. I don't know why, but I just love that idea.
Definitely sounds like retirement. I have a few friends that are farmers. It's not my lifestyle, but I'm sure that it's beautiful and lovely. So good on her for having a dream. I wonder what mine is. She's thinking really far ahead.
And that is not something that I plan on happening anytime soon, but rather in 5 to 8 years or so.
There you go. She just said it. It's a plan to work towards and a goal to work towards achieving. How's she going to do it? Probably by applying pretty much the same fundamentals that she has been talking about for the last 4 minutes.
And this brings me to my next point, which is that it is never too early to start aiming. As I said, I only recently bought my own apartment, but I've been looking at apartments for like 5 years or more, actively for about a couple of years. I wrote about my dream apartment, I envisioned myself living there, and I started planning for it.
That's pretty crazy to think that she's been paying rent for 5 years and has still done a really good job in saving her money to be able to afford that apartment and buy it. It may not have been outright, she may still owe money on it. She doesn't actually go into that in the video, but the point again being that even with the upfront cost of rent and bills, she was able to live outside of her family home for 5 years or so and still save a deposit through applying those fundamentals, whether it have been increasing the money coming into her bank accounts each week and managing her money by not spending all of it. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but the point being that she, again, put processes in place to maximize her ability to save her money.
I wrote down the addresses that I wanted to live on. I looked at expenses and even furniture. All the Pinterest boards that I've created, even though at the time, realistically, I didn't know when or if that dream would become a reality.
And there you go. A little bit of doubt and non-realization of whether or not that goal would be achieved. She didn't know how she was going to achieve it. She didn't know if it would become a reality, and she didn't know how fast it would become a reality. This is something that definitely stops people from trying their hardest to achieve these goals, because there is doubt and there is a bit of complexity, and it's scary to think that you may not be able to achieve it because it's hard. But how will you ever know if you never give it a go? So good on her for doing it. I guess good on me for doing it, and good on for lots of people who are taking steps to better themselves and better their understanding of personal finance.
But again, going back to the I am just as capable as anyone else mindset, I would think to myself, well, someone else is living there right now, so why would I not be able to live somewhere like that too? So basically, I just acted as if it was already written in the stars for me, and I started saving for it accordingly. So call it manifestation, call it vision board. I just call it planning.
Great point. Absolutely, 100%. I am not skeptical whatsoever, and this is something that I hear a lot where people say call it manifestation, manifesting. Yes, the concept of it is like you basically doing work and trying to achieve a goal, which in turn is the manifestation of that thing happening. But I don't think that it's luck, and I don't think that it's all luck. I think that there is a massive work component that goes into it. Massive time, massive amount of planning, and to pull it off, the reward coming out of it is earned by you. It's not a manifestation like it's just happened. It's you have set your sights on this goal and you have worked to it. You have worked as hard as you could to achieve it. And it sounds like the planning component of this played a big part in her success. So again, really, really cool to hear someone else say it, because she gets it. She understands that the concept here is, again, it's your mindset, it's your work ethic, it's your habit building, and that's what drives the outcome, not luck.
Now let's get into the how-tos of things. First things first, you need to start a savings account if you haven't already. You need to separate the money that you are allowed to spend freely every month from the money that you are not allowed to spend freely every month.
Very common and generic rules to follow. Super simple to start slow and build up, and eventually it just becomes second nature. I've preached it before. She's not the first person to preach it, but absolutely good advice.
You can't have it all in the same place. And now I'm not going to get into which type of savings account and interest and all of that, because my viewers are from all over the world. So what applies to someone in the US might not apply to someone in UK. But there is tons of good information that you can find online, and you can also talk to different banks.
That's as simple as it has to be. The information that she's given you and provided you is exactly all you need to go out and start asking questions to people in your local area who can give you relevant information. Nice.
Okay, so now that you have opened your savings account, congrats. Now it's time to figure out how much you can and should be saving. So start by just zooming out. Get an overview of what it is that you are currently dealing with. where is money coming in, where is money going out.
Well, she definitely has much better effects than I have, and they're probably going to have to be things that I need to start incorporating into my videos because she's clearly getting the views, she's clearly killing it. Wonder if I'll ever catch up.
And now you might even see that you have certain expenses that you don't even know what they are. I know a lot of people pay for apps and things like that that they have totally forgotten about, or that they didn't even know that they were paying for. And now it's time to calculate your basic expenses, the non-negotiable stuff that you simply need to pay for survival. And that includes things like shelter, food, and anything health related. It might include transportation or debt for some people, depending on your life situation. And now once you have those expenses down, look over all of them and see if what you are paying right now is reasonable and if there's any way that you can keep any of those costs down.
Again, super generic advice, you've heard it a million times, and yet another example of someone who applies those rules and actually has benefited from it greatly. At her age, she's doing pretty well from the looks of it. Again, you don't specifically know how they're doing, but the point is that she has the same fundamentals that I have. She's from Sweden, I'm from Australia, and it works for me, it works for her. It definitely could work for you as well. Think about it. If you're someone who's been really grappling with this decision to take a step forward into doing something like categorizing your expenses or breaking down your wage into different bank accounts and understanding the money in versus the money out, even starting with baby steps, it's going to benefit you. And clearly I'm not the only person preaching this because it's a system that is known worldwide. It's not a secret. It's just something that needs to be sought after.
So how much are you paying for your phone? How much are you paying for your car? Could you switch any of those things out for a cheaper alternative?
I wonder if our costs are similar being from different countries. I spend roughly $65 a month on my phone for a reason. It would probably be much lower if I wasn't able to claim a portion of that back on my tax. And also my car, I drive a high performance vehicle. A high performance vehicle is classified by that by insurance companies. So that costs me a little bit more, roughly in the realm of $800 for insurance a year and probably over $1,000 for petrol. I wonder what the actual petrol price in Sweden is compared to Australia. Be interesting to find out.
And hence be able to save a few extra dollars or pounds or whatever currency each month. I know for some people, food can be a big one here. I personally cook at home 99.9% of the time. I think eating out all the time is a total waste of money unless you are very passionate about food and it's one of your greatest pleasures in life and you have the means to treat yourself.
Very good advice again. I pack my lunches to go to work. It might sound sad, it might sound soppy, it might sound cheap, but I don't need to spend money on lunches every day and I actively avoid doing it because I see how quickly that racks up. I work in various locations, I move around a lot for my job, and it would be very easy for me to buy lunch each day for the most part. So even if you're not passionate about it, but you are aware that your spending is high, again, it could be something you try to tailor. It could be something that you try to, let's say, incorporate once a week where you don't buy lunch on a day. I know a person that I actually work with who buys lunch every single day. Nothing wrong with it. He definitely has the means to service that bill, but it definitely would rack up over time. We're talking thousands of dollars a year on takeout and food that is probably bad for you in the first instance, and B, to cook it or recreate that meal with fresh groceries from a supermarket would be probably a lot cheaper, and it probably wouldn't even be that time consuming in the long run.
But even so, cooking is fun and it's also a lot healthier to cook at home. Now, after you have calculated your total non-negotiable expenses, see how much of your income is left.
That's it. She's basically just giving you 5 different examples of ways to calculate how much you're spending each week, for example. And then she said, write it down and figure out what's going into your bank account at the start of the pay period and how much you spend and on what you spend that money over that pay period and see what's left over. If it's negative, that's probably a really bad thing and it probably would be obvious. If it's positive, great, you're saving. Now, how do you maximize that?
Now let's move on to the things that you don't necessarily need in life, but that you just really want. So Netflix, Spotify, Ubering everywhere, shopping, any bad habits like cigarettes or alcohol, how much are you spending on those things each month? And this brings us to the tough one, the one that just stings, which is that life is all about priorities and sacrifices. In money, in your personal life, in your relationships, in your career, it's an endless loop of, am I willing to give this thing up for this thing? Everything in life is an exchange.
She really broke that down well. That was a great point. Realistically, your time is traded for money unless you're running a business or you have created sources of passive income. 99% of people trade their time for money. I myself currently trade my time for money for the most part. Problem with doing this is, like she says, you need to sacrifice to obtain things. So if I want to have a new computer or a new phone, I need to generate the money and then purchase the phone with that money. Now, with that money, I could have spent it on other things. And obviously, the outcome of this would have been me sacrificing something to obtain something else. Her goals, she's clearly set big ones that cost more money than the average household item. But the point sticks, and it is that, like she said, sacrificing is a big component of obtaining or achieving the things that you want to achieve, whether it be sacrificing your time for money or sacrificing your money or sacrificing a purchase that you may have made for something else. So really good point. On top of that, as well as I have spoken about this in a previous video as well, out of the 4 pillars or the 4 fundamental pillars that I follow in order to achieve my goals surrounding things that are to do with finance, which they are, in a nutshell, mindset, habit building, work ethic, and sacrifice. They are the 4 pillars. They're the 4 main things. And she's touched on all of them. And it's really funny because I'd actually made my video surrounding these topics or these pillars because that's how I was raised. Maybe we read the same book or something. I don't know. But it's really refreshing to see someone else who is just literally portraying the exact same message that I have tried to portray in my videos. She seems to articulate it a little bit better.
So, what are you willing to exchange for some extra cash into your savings account? Personally, there are a lot of things that I just won't spend money on because I would rather have the extra cash. And some of those things are, I don't get my nails done. Very rarely will I get coffee or any other overly priced beverage that I can just make myself. I don't have a car, at least not at this stage in my life. I never shop on sale just for the sake of it. The list goes on.
So she's just listing things that are completely applicable to her, but I'm sure that you could come up with a list, and I can too. Examples for me would be, I do have a car because I need a car for my job, but I want a motorcycle. I don't have a motorcycle. I don't buy lunch or coffee at work. I actively avoid doing it. I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I do drink the occasional coffee, and I do go for the coffee runs with people. I just decide to go for the walk instead of actually buy the coffee. They're small examples that are applicable to her, but things that would add up definitely over time. So think to yourself, what type of things would fit into this category for you?
If you would like a video on the things that I don't spend money on and why and what I use or get as substitutes, let me know in the comment section. So look over your "but I really want that" expenses and see where you can cut down the costs. And now you might think to yourself, but all those things only add up to around $100 a month. How is saving that going to get me anywhere? It does. Money adds up.
It absolutely will make a difference. I'm sure she'll explain it, but it absolutely does make a difference. That money builds up quickly. A really good example is my fun account, which I use to basically go on holidays with. That money is money that I allocate that never should exist. It's money that I save by not spending it on other things. It's not money that's purposed for anything other than going on holidays. So when I do eventually decide to spend that money to go on a holiday, which is more often than you might think, I don't feel guilty about spending that money because I've either sacrificed something, I've either thought a purchase through and not gone through with it, and the result is me saving over time thousands of dollars, which allow me to enjoy my holidays guilt-free. And in her instance, she may purpose that money towards something else. Again, the point being that logic does work.
All right, the next point is probably the most crucial one. So I know that a lot of people struggle with falling into temptation easily. We see something that we want and we think, why not just buy it? We walk past our favorite restaurant and think, what is spending an extra $15 going to do anyway? We see someone have something and then we want that thing. We spend $50 on wine because you only live once.
Terrible logic. It doesn't work, and in the long run, it will detrimentally affect you because that's how lifestyle creep takes over. Lifestyle creep being, if I haven't made a video on it already, lifestyle creep being where the amount of money you earn scales with the amount of money you spend. So the more you earn, the more you spend, thus resulting in you never being able to save your money or purpose it towards something that's actually meaningful in the long run.
And really, the road that will take you out of that behavior or pattern is practicing delayed gratification. So basically impulse control. And there are tons of good resources that you can find on this topic. And really, I think it is one of the most important life hacks to learn. Essentially, it's about thinking short-term versus long-term, with the latter, of course, being the way to go if you want to save as much as possible.
Great logic. Again, it's long-term thinking, it's planning ahead, and it's just basically putting your goals into a program that you can follow and build towards achieving. For most purchases, up to something like a house, it's all applicable. I've just never called it delayed gratification, but good point.
So when I was 19 or 20 or 18 and friends wanted me to spend hundreds of dollars on the club every weekend, I was like, thanks, but I got a farmhouse down the line and chickens are expensive.
That's hilarious, but completely applicable to me as well. I wasn't the biggest party animal. I know plenty of people that went out a lot and still managed to save money, and I know plenty of people who went out a lot and didn't actually save anything. Again, it comes down to the things that you find important to you, the things that you set as goals and things that you work towards achieving. The friends that went out partying every weekend probably sacrificed on other things like spending on fast food, just as an example. The resulting outcome of doing this, again, is you can still enjoy the little things and you can still enjoy your life, but putting some type of plan in place to save a portion of your money will result in you being able to achieve bigger and better goals. And like I said at the start or earlier in this video, meaningful goals.
And now I do want to throw in a quick tip that actually used to help me quite a lot. And that was that whenever I felt the urge to spend money on something, I would translate the cost of that into the amount of hours that it would take me at work to make that money. And then I would ask myself, is this thing worth 5 hours at the office?
That's a great tip. Here's a bonus tip and then another bonus tip. And they are, the first one is, another way to do this is to figure out the cost per wear. So you have an item and you could roughly estimate how many times you're going to use this item. Let's say you bought a dress because you're a man and you're going to go wear a dress. Let's say you're only going to wear that once. The cost per wear would be the value of that dress completely and wholly versus a pair of boots that you wear 1,000,000 times over the course of 30 years. That's unrealistic, but you get the point. The way to work out the cost per wear is to divide the cost of the item up front, divide it by the number of times you use it, and you'll get a broken down cost. So every time you use it, it might only cost you a couple of cents, thus making it a worthy purchase. Another way or another tip to avoid impulse purchases and get your head in the right space before spending money absolutely would be to wait a period of time before making the purchase. Let's say it's not on sale and it's something that you're planning on buying. Wait 30 hours. 30 hours, wait 24 hours, wait 72 hours. Wait a period of time that lets you actually appreciate how much that money is worth to you. Don't do this with everything, but definitely do it with things that are going to cost you a little bit more than your average product, because the result will be you probably realizing that you probably don't want it as much as you think for most things.
And since I really did not like my job at the time, the answer was almost always no, which was great. But now that I really love my job, that doesn't really do the trick for me anymore, but I figured I would just throw that out there.
There you go. Just out of that, it clearly shows that not every tip and trick is going to work for everyone. And as she has evolved and as her money situation has changed, that tip/trick no longer works for her. So she's probably implementing something else that she probably will talk about in another video. Find the thing that works for you to control your impulse buying, because impulse buying is a problem. And I know a lot of people who have a problem with it.
And now you might be thinking, wait, am I supposed to just stop living my life and do fun things altogether? What if I want to go out and eat or get my nails done or shop? Treating yourself is up for definition, and deciding on how much wiggle room you give yourself with your spendings is up to you. I have treated myself plenty in life and I keep doing so, but I do it within reason.
I love that saying, within reason. Within reason. Yep, 100%. Totally agree. I still get to enjoy my life, and as my income has increased over the years, I get to enjoy it a little bit more every day. I've worked towards that and I've achieved that. So it's even more satisfying knowing that I'm not breaking the rules that I've already put in place, because it basically allows me to continue propelling forward.
And what within reason means to me may not be what within reason means to you. How much money makes sense for me to spend on treating myself based on my personal finances may not make sense to you based on your finances.
That's exactly the point that I like to preach, is that everyone's different, and she's clearly identifying that.
What I know for sure is that I've never looked back on my life thinking, if only I would have gone to Starbucks every single day and gotten takeout 3 times a week. On the contrary, I have looked back thinking, I'm so glad I decided to exchange some of those products or services or experiences for the money that I then put into my savings account, because now I'm being rewarded for it. And that to me is treating myself.
Great way of putting it, and I couldn't agree more.
And now the last thing I want to say is that savings aren't only meant to go towards one specific thing. People save money because it's always smart to have a safety net. Life is very unpredictable, as we all know, and you never want to put yourself in a situation where you have very little money to your name, when preventing that could have been possible had you made different life choices. And that was all for today's video.
Great point again. And that's why I highly encourage you to break up your wage in a way that makes you realize that you're allocating money to specific things. Some will be enjoying and spending that money. Some will be building up a safety net, like an emergency fund, and some will be saving for things like a house or a holiday, big purchases. The point being, I love saying the point being because it's so applicable in this scenario, is that it's so important for you to not just dump money into an account and see that more is going in there than what's coming out, and actually purpose your money for specific things, because once you figure out where that money's going, for the most part, not everything, but for the most part, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable knowing that you have safety nets and you are able to spend money on a night out with your friends without feeling guilty about it. It's a great point, and it's really refreshing to see, again, the logic there, that it's worked for her, it's worked for me, it's worked for people I know. You can do it too. It's baby steps in the long run. I've linked Lana's channel down in the description below, and I've also linked the video that I reacted to today in there. I think that regardless of the size of her YouTube channel, it's only fair that I provide that information. So definitely go show her some love if you're interested and you like the video she made. This was my first reaction on the content from this enormous platform, and I definitely intend to make more in the future aside from my actual regular content, because I think it's important to gain perspective from other people, and I think that it's useful putting my own thoughts into a video format that I myself can review, but also to give you some perspective of if I agree with it or not, if it's applicable to you or not, depending on where you live in the world, and how useful that information is. With that being said, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment down below and don't forget to subscribe. And as always, I will see you in the next one.